Oh, let me tell you something. I am so sick of Washington and all its works and all them politicians down there and them congressmen and the congressmen. Boy, I'll bet you won't find none of them congressmen turning down their electric blankets tonight. Because if they did, their secretaries would get up and go home. Oh, Reedus, the Democrats is doing the whole... The Democrats, and you put them in there. That's the face you had on you when you come back in the polls. Well, the Democrats' way of running this country is to go tell us all how we ought to make sacrifices. God, they're great on that stuff. But they're all going to have us over the hill to the poorhouse. We ain't going to be able to drive over there because we ain't got no gas, so we're going to have to walk it.
Oh, the Reader's Digest says walking is very good for you.
Oh, ain't that lovely? The Reader's Digest can always put a little joy into poverty. Listen, my whole point is this whole thing with the energy and everything. This is all a conspiracy. Don't you know that? It's a conspiracy there. Listen, for years, all our lives, they've been telling us to go out and buy stuff that use energy. You know, all electrical stuff. They got electric toasters, electric ovens, electric stove, electric stereo, electric TV, electric race, electric hair blower, electric knives, electric every damn thing. Not to mention the cars. And now, after all the big corporations there make the billions and billions of dollars worth of profits, signals, wham, they're changed. And after telling us for years that we can't live without this junk, now they tell us that we gotta live without it. The country is going straight into the dumper.
Remember that guy? You know, I can remember watching All in the Family. You know, when you were so young that you didn't even sit on a sofa to watch on TV. You just got a pillow or sat on the carpet or rug in front of the TV. And then your parents would be there on the furniture. And you'd be on the ground with your brothers and sisters. And that's how we watched TV in the 70s. I always went on the ground. Sometimes put a pillow behind my head and just lay down on my back and just cranked my head a little bit and watched the TV. You know, you can go back and find more Archie Bunker clips now that it's unbelievable how right the guy turned out to be. You know, hey now. What we're grappling with is a consciousness pollution that has been infecting us insidiously. It's almost demonic, the ideology and the mind control that's been used on us since World War II. You know, I always go back to World War II, and it's interesting since I published The Devil in Us, how many people are referencing this now. Like Tucker Carlson says that 1945 is the year that America lost God and replaced itself with God because of our accomplishment of creating 2 hydrogen bombs and dropping them on Nagasaki and Hiroshima. And it's an interesting thesis. It's an interesting theory. I wouldn't say he's wrong. He's getting there. He's close to being right. But what I'm noticing, you know, as the author of this book, The Devil in Us, is that nobody's putting it all together. Nobody's seeing the big picture. I mean, there are people out there, but, you know, they generally specialize in something, you know. Specialize in researching the Nephilim or the Anunnaki or, you know, the giants or secret societies, and, you know, but the totality of the story is that we're in a spiritual war. Now, when you normally say that, people go biblical and they think aliens and demons. When I say spiritual, I mean non-physical. Non-physical entities and beings and orders of beings. And I don't mean the angelic or demonic here. Are, in a sense, doing to our planet what the immigrants are doing to our countries. We've been breached. You know, schizophrenia is an auric breach, right? Your aura gets weak, something happens, and you end up with these other voices in your head. They just get in. But they're entities. We know this. We know this from Jerry Marzinski. I knew this myself. I've told this story on my show before. You know, from about 2007 to about 2012 or so. Well, actually, to about 2012. I lived in this one location, and I used to go to a coffee shop every day, similar to a Starbucks, but it's a coffee shop chain we have in Canada that I don't think you have it in the United States or Australia. It's called The Second Cup. And I used to go there every day. It was my main social life. And everybody knew me there. I was a little bit famous because I'd ended up in a broadsheet weekend feature on me in 2007 when God is an Economist came out. And so I met a lot of different kinds of people. I had a little bit a minor experience of what it might like to be a little bit famous or a little bit of a celebrity. Not in any great scope, just in one little, 5-block area in Mississauga, the west of Toronto. But I went to this coffee shop like every day for I don't know, probably about 5 years. My son and I used to go together. He'd get like some kind of sweet beverage. He didn't drink coffee back then. And we would just read or hang out or just talk to people and stuff like that. And I befriended a schizophrenic there. His name was Daniel Flynn. He was an Irish guy. He was about 6'4", maybe 155 pounds, like unbelievably skinny. I don't know what it is about schizophrenics, but they'll often they can't really control their consumption. So if they get a fixed amount of money to live on, they'll skimp on food and smoke 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And in Canada, a pack of cigarettes is 25 cigarettes, so smoke 50 cigarettes in a day. Schizophrenics love nicotine for some reason. I'm sure if I were to research that, there'd be a reason for it, a chemical reason, but... So this is my own direct experience. Now, when you go back to the demonic literature, there's a checklist of things they go through to prove that somebody is not mentally ill, and that this really is a possession. And there's a number of criteria. One of them is knowing things you couldn't possibly know. And sometimes that manifestation in the demonic circles is quite dramatic. Like the possessed person will start speaking in a language that they never knew. By the way, this also happens when people come out of long comas. There are stories of people coming out of comas and being able to play classical piano. And prior to the coma, never having been around a piano, let alone taken lessons, let alone gotten to a point where they can expertly play classical compositions. It's kind of amazing, eh? And that's the way it goes. Hi guys, I just opened up my chat. Yeah, hey guys. And one of the things I noticed with Daniel was he often knew things he couldn't know. Right? Now sometimes it just happens. Like you can develop it. Like I'll give you another example. So I was making a loaf of bread today. And I looked on the shelf in front of me outside. We got this big sort of wooden shelf we do food prep on. Big slab of wood. It took 6 men to lift and put it into place. Hi guys. Hi Kit Walter Music. Hey Polly Nation. 1 pack equals $20. Yeah. And I was making a loaf of bread, and we've been having problems with the yeast. And I've tried everything. I've done exactly what they say on the internet. You got to keep the water at about like 110 degrees Fahrenheit. So you can put your finger in it. It's not like scalding hot, but it's definitely warm. You got to mix the yeast with sugar, and the combination of the sugar and the yeast will begin the process of the yeast doing what it does, which is releasing gases, which is what puffs out the bread, by the way. And when you're monitoring your yeast, you'll start to see bubbles in the little bowl that you've put your water and your sugar and your yeast in, and you stir it all up, and after a little while you start to see bubbles, and that's how you know the chemical process has started. But I was having all this difficulty getting my bread to rise, and today I was making a loaf of bread, and I thought, wow, I wonder if vinegar, like just a capful of vinegar, half a teaspoon of vinegar, would have a chemical effect on the yeast. And literally, the moment it entered my mind, my wife, who was standing right beside me, and was simultaneously carrying on a conversation with her brother, my brother-in-law, because I'm getting a big bunch of woodwork, really nice hardwood deck work done in the back around the pool and stuff. Another $2,000 micro project here. I'm doing a project like every 6 weeks now. I'm getting ready for tourism, right? This is a hillbilly condo up here. It gets really kind of interesting with the way this whole place is evolving. And, oh, by the way, did anybody feel anything yesterday? 8/8? Holy shit. I had like this 45-minute conversation, and the person didn't seem like themselves, and I just let them go and go and go, and it was very emotional, and then when they were done and there was a pause and they took a breath, I said, you know what day it is? And they said no. He said it's 8/8, which is the high satanic day, right? 8/8, August 8th. August 1st is a big ritual day, but 8/8, there's something about that number 8. And again, 8 is, so 8/8 is like 4 4s. 4 4s is 16, 2 8s is 16. 4 4s is the perfect representation of the cube. 4 4s. Okay? And remember, the cube is what we're battling. And I'm not just inventing rhetoric here, metaphor and allegory to explain myself to you. This is literally the plan of the alien controllers, whether you perceive them as demonic. And really, when you come to know what these beings are up to, and you read all the descriptions of what demons are doing in the Bible, you can fairly well assume that the demonic and the extraterrestrial are very similar. Okay, so I don't get all hung up on this stuff. If there's anything I'd like to do in the Talamanca Review, it's unify people of disparate ideological perspectives into a singular front against the genuine, life-threatening, culture-destroying, civilization-destroying force that we're up against. And everywhere we go, it's division, division, division. Just mind-boggling. But Daniel would often know things he couldn't know. And then I met other schizophrenics from him, and they did the same thing. Oh, I forgot to finish my story. I do this all the time. So my wife says, out of the blue, why don't you try a little vinegar? I said, why did you say that? She says, I don't know. I was just looking at some YouTube videos, and because the bread wasn't rising a couple days ago, I was looking at some YouTube videos, and I saw something about a teaspoon of vinegar. And I said, you know, I was just thinking that. It's like you literally just read my mind. But she's my wife. This stuff, when you become intimate with somebody and you share everything, especially in an environment like this where all of your pretenses come down. I mean, I do my podcasts in a cut-off collared shirt like Cletus from The Simpsons. And by the way, Cletus was a genius. When you live and you don't have to impress anybody, you live exactly as you feel comfortable. Okay? Within reason, respecting other people and everything like that. Right? So my wife did that, and Daniel did it like about a dozen times in the 6 or 7 years I knew him. And I would always stop and look at his eyes, and I would think to myself, man, that's not Daniel. And then he would start to laugh in a certain way, like the other personality inside him knew that I had seen it. This is like 2007, 2008, way before I encountered Jerry Marzinsky or any of his theories on schizophrenia. And I started saying out loud, schizophrenia is entity possession. It's not demonic, you see. It's not everything is demonic. Again, the best explanation we get on this is from the Jews in the concept or the precept of the Dybbuk. And a Dybbuk is a dead human being who did not find a good spot in the afterlife and is just kind of hovering between physical and astral. And there's a buffer zone in there. There's a gap space. There's gap spaces between the dimensions, by the way. Okay, that's something classical esoterica doesn't teach you. Bob taught me that. And then it was later, remember yesterday I spoke about magnetic consciousness, where you hear something and if your heart is pure, you meditate and pray a lot. If your heart asks a question, you'll get the answer right away if you're clean. Clean in your thinking and your feeling, meaning that you do spiritual exercise on a daily basis. And you try to live the 10 Commandments or the Eightfold Buddhist Path, which is basic, simple human morality. One of the affectations of this way of living, combined with the spiritual practice, is your questions get answered super fast. You develop a magnetic consciousness. So magnetic consciousness is the inverse of manifestation consciousness. One is propelling things into the world, and one is magnetizing information or knowledge that you need to you. And the moment Bob told me this, I immediately had it magically confirmed through a number of YouTube podcasts and stuff. And so, yeah, this is what's going on. And so, and now there's just so much going on, and there's just so much of an attack on the human aura and the human integrity of perception and consciousness that is the divine right of a human being. And I'm telling you, one of the ways you can read reality is, remember, there's always an interlinking of things. So the interlinking, or the fractal interlinking between the visible and the invisible here, is just as our borders are being breached. Many people's, if they're weak, their auras are being breached. It's a multidimensional invasion simultaneously. And a lot of the people coming in, I mean, they're already possessed. Those Venezuelan street gangs are demonically possessed. Anybody who can kill without blinking an eye like that, who enjoys killing human beings, that is possession as well. And the demon isn't egging you on to do it. It's just creating a space inside of you where you're temporarily sheltered from the emotional and spiritual effects of what you're doing. And then when the demonic protection leaves you, and you will come to see it as demonic protection, when the demonic protection leaves you, then you're just left with what you did. And you re-examine it with your heart, because the demon's gone, and you feel your heart again, and you look at, you go, holy shit, how did I do all this? and you realize you were possessed. That's the way demonology works. It's infinitely more subtle and infinitely more prolific than what we're led to believe by these sophomoric presentations on possession coming out of the Christian community. It's ridiculous what they're saying. You know, Nephilim are real. I worked with the Nephilim on The Devil and Us. Doesn't mean I'm buddies with them, okay? Nothing you've been told is what you think it is. Okay? Do I have a responsibility to say these things out loud? Because I was told them. I went through a proof of concept in the writing of the book, and everything I was told and everything that was spiritually revealed to me in the writing of the book was proven to be true. Which means everything we've been told about the devil and the demonic legions is wrong. And the reason a truly spiritually functioning reality would be one in which people have a general respect for demons. Because you know what demons do? They come in and they clean stuff up. They're part of the cleaner class. Okay, like cockroaches, maggots, all the stuff that we think is horrible and we put in horror movies, they're all just the same thing. They are things that eat dead things. So the maggot or the blowfly or the cockroach or the rat or whatever's eating your dead body, it's not evil. We think it's evil because when we see the decaying body, if you don't have the spiritual maturity to realize that was just the shell the spirit lived in, you get these horrific feelings, and that becomes the myth of the devil. But it's just the cleanup. In a temporary environment that creates and takes things down, and that's what the organic process does. Every tree that grows and blooms its leaves will die at some point. Whether it's 100 years or 1,000 years or longer for the giant redwoods in California, they will eventually die. Every frog will die, every toad, every bird, every human being, everything dies. Okay? Coming into life and leaving life, coming into life and leaving life. And this simple little spiritual mechanism, once understood and overcome in terms of fear and apprehension, is the fulcrum by which they control us with fear. That's it in a nutshell. It's our own fear of death. Much of what's going on in the world now and much of the chaos we live in is the result of us, not the governance. Remember, they only put the candy bar in front of you. You unwrapped it and you ate it. You gain 2 pounds. If you do that every day for a month and you get on the scales, or after your jeans won't button up, you go, oh my God, I've put on 12 pounds. Those evil people made me fat. No, you ate a chocolate bar every day for 30 days on top of your normal diet. Of course you gained weight. It's necessary that you see what's going on, not from a human perspective, but from a divine perspective, which is the balance and economy of energies, which simultaneously create and destroy in a temporal space like this 3D material space, create and destroy and regulate the experiences of life in between the creation and the destruction. So that's God, the creative principality, looking at all the dimensions of creation right down to the physical. And when God looks down and you pray or you cry out for spiritual aid and an agent of the Creator or a higher order being floating around hears you and comes in to investigate, they go, well, you ate the chocolate bar. We can't help you. Right? And what we're going through now is the consequence, to continue or extend the metaphor into an allegory. It is the consequence of eating this chocolate bar every day through the 20th century after World War II. And now, as a society, we're distraught that our health is bad and things are not looking good for us. We have literally become the most pathetic people on the planet. the first world white people. We're a disgrace to this human race, right? And what do we think? We think we're enlightened. We think we're better than everybody else. We think that we're transcendent. We think we've overcome all these stupid little superstitions and all these primitive things, and we don't think we need a cultural container anymore. We've transcended culture. We're a series of individuals, maybe, I don't know, 1 billion of us all together, from Greece all the way from Southern Europe through Mid-Europe and Eastern Europe and Western Europe. Eastern Europe's a bit different, but that's a separate story. And then North America, Australia, New Zealand. They can physically arrest you and inject you now in New Zealand. New Zealand, Canada, and Australia are the spear tip of this agenda in the white Christian world. America is usually left alone at the beginning because America's harder to deal with, more problematic for them. But I guarantee you they're working on something now. Canada, I agree with Michael Yon. I'm not sure who sent me that comment. Hey, Bruce, if you like Michael Yon, watch this. It was the Doug Casey podcast. I watched the whole thing. I think it was like an hour and 21 minutes, and it was, classic Michael Yon. And thank you for that recommendation. But he thinks we're in really rough shape too. And then the final battleground will be America. Okay, but there's nothing going on here. Now, it depends. I mean, the amount of planning that's gone into this is mind-boggling. And our own governments are in on it. Our own governments are the red carpet for the invaders to come into our country. Those are not immigrants. We need to stop saying this. Those are not immigrants. And why is it that this pattern is specifically happening only in European Christian cultures and their colonial outposts like Canada, Australia, New Zealand, and to a lesser extent accrediting the American Revolution, the United States? So, as I say often, the thing that's most disheartening about all of this is it's also solvable. Nothing has to happen. If we had competent leadership that loved us and loved our cultures rather than this dick in her dress Arden cunt that ran New Zealand, whatever fucking cunt is running Australia, the super duper dandy, will you please stick your tongue in my ass, Justin Trudeau, the Carmel Catamite looking for his 4th term through Kamala Harris, Barack Hussein Obama. Our own leaders are killing us. Think of all the history you've read. Have you ever seen anything like this? There have been tricks like the Trojan horse. There have been forces within a nation that have opened the gates for invaders. The Jews did that to the Spaniards in like the 1300s. But I have never in the historical record seen an instance where a nation's leaders betrayed its own people uniformly across 7 to 12 nations the way it's happening now. Greece, Portugal, Spain, France, Netherlands, Belgium, Norway, Finland, Sweden. I don't know what's going on in Switzerland. They may have some kind of immunity for being the center of banking and stuff, but I could be wrong there. Obviously England, and then us, the satellite nations, right? Why is it just here? And stop and think for a moment the level of coordination that this takes. Okay? I mean, we're really down to the last minutes now. And people are still paying their taxes because they don't want to lose their benefits. Those benefits are going to cost you your life. It's really kind of mind-boggling. You know, I set out a number of years ago with a spiritual understanding of what was coming. As I told you, it was given to me in like 2002, 2003, in an almost immediate download. And but when you get a download, you don't necessarily know everything. Okay, like just like when if you download a movie from the internet, after it's done downloading, you have to actually sit down and watch it, digest it. And it's very similar with consciousness downloads. So it took me about a decade to unpack what I was given in 2002. And by about 2012, 2013, I had a very accurate understanding of what was going on. And that, by the way, is what produced the book I wrote 12 years ago, The Stolen Child, which I highly recommend you read. You'll enjoy it. You'll enjoy it the same way you enjoy a really good HBO series or a really good movie. It's a very enjoyable book. It's a work of fiction and explains what's going on this planet maybe as well or better than any of my non-fiction, because there's no restrictions in fiction. You can invent something to convey your energy and your ideas and your concepts and your precepts and your understanding and perspective. That's the genius of the creative process. Now, when you stop and think about this, there's no plan to take over our societies. I don't know how many of you have stopped to think about this. So do you think these Muslim hordes are going to take over in Britain? I don't see how they could. I don't see how the Hindus, the Sikhs, the Chinese, the enlightened Arabs from the UAE, Dubai, Saudi Arabia would tolerate that. So what's going to happen, because our leadership and our system of law is failing, is these societies are going to slip into tribalism. Isn't that ironic that the most advanced societies in the world can be reduced to Hutsis and Tutsis killing each other with machetes like Rwanda? That, make no mistake about it, that's what they're trying to bring about. It's so close now you can almost smell it. One little thing goes wrong, as Michael Yon says. He says 2 days without electricity and it's on. People, how long can the grocery stores maintain food without electricity? What's going to happen when the food resupply fails? Start putting together everything that's been going on. My clock begins 9/11. And that's the symbolism of the World Trade Towers coming down. So the old system is physically, it's physical and symbolic representation in what was ostensibly the capital city of the Western world, New York. Those two towers were taken down. And as typical in every chapter of this book we're living through right now, the majority of characters in that chapter are Jewish as well, including Israel and the Mossad, and then that super creepy ultra Jew Feinstein, or whatever the hell his name was, that magically, miraculously, through the magic of gematria and the divinity of Yahweh, he was given the prescience to take out an excessive insurance policy on Building 7. And for 22 fucking years, we've been letting them do this. We've been letting them shit on us. We've been letting them piss in our face. And nobody has stood up. Everybody's afraid of being called a white supremacist, a racist, a homophobe, an anti-Semite. No more. No more. Tell the truth. Tell it with compassion. Don't allow hate or your reactive energies to consume you. Speak your truth. You know, you come here, you're at the Talamanca Review, you're listening to me. Do you go out and seek other people to impart this information or perspective to? Do you gently try to drop hints so that people can come to a comprehension of how dangerous the world is right now for first world white people, specifically first world white Christians? The sworn, intergenerationally sworn enemy of the Orthodox Jew. You say anything, you're an anti-Semite. When they're ripping your guts out the way they killed the priests in the Bolshevik Revolution, are you going to keep your mouth shut because you don't want to be called an anti-Semite? I'll fast forward you to the end of this story. The Jews are going to get wiped out. They're at the end of their rope. There's no more magic tricks for them. There's no more scapegoating. The energetics. So I'll go back to this stupid 5D idea that the New Age flakes like Bartzis and David Ellis and people like that are talking about, which it's absolutely fucking nonsensical, but I will use it as a starting point for another idea. The fundamental energies on this planet are changing. And they don't have to change much, right? You change a recipe just the slightest amount and the bread won't rise. Or the meat won't cook. Or the cheese on the pizza won't melt. You change even 1% of the chemical constituency of a pharmaceutical, it's not the same thing anymore, and it's not going to do the same thing. If you're a master bagel maker, and you've been making bagels for 20 years, and every day you go get the water for your bagels down at a stream, and all of a sudden the taste of the bagels and the form of the bagels changes, you're going to figure out through a deductive and inductive process that there's more chemicals or minerals have somehow gotten into the water. The bagel is not the same. Okay? The constituent energetic representation of this 3D is changing now. And it's changing towards the divine. And so the first stage of this process is the revelation of the dormant evil that's been around us all the time. Think of it like going through a big field. So one of the things that happens up here when you go to clean, and the pastures are cleaned with machetes. Around my house, I clean with a whippersnipper. You know, a whippersnipper. Can't use lawnmowers here. And one of the things that happens is you encounter a lot of snakes, especially doing the machete cleaning with the higher grass. So I have like 1.5 hectares here on the side of my property, which is either going to be the site of another house or a very large food and fruit tree garden, which I haven't decided yet. I still buy most of my food. But when they go to clean that, it takes two guys about a day to clean the whole thing. Maybe 2 days. And then you get the report. You know, we killed 7 snakes, between 1 and 2 meters long. And I'm living right beside my land, and I never see those snakes because they're in the grass, right? But when the environment changes, when the height of the grass has changed, when people are walking around, the snakes come out. The energetic constituency of my field, my pasture land, changes, and in that change, it becomes inhospitable for certain things. In this case, the snakes. The energetic constituents of this reality are changing in the favor of the divine. One of the side effects is we're seeing all the metaphorical snakes that have been in our system, that have been in our thinking, our education, our medicine, our justice, our banking, our finance, everything. And it's all just being shown to us now like a cosmic deposition. It's not taking place at FBI headquarters. It's not taking place at the Department of Justice. No warrants have been served, no subpoenas have been served, and yet it's happening nonetheless, is it not? One of the other effects of this constituent change of our environment is the old tricks which have worked for the last 3,000 years for our Kabbalistic friends and their Masonic cousins, and the other infested secret societies, infested with dark magic and self-empowerment, which is anti-spiritual. It's a consciousness journey. If you don't know anything about consciousness, you're not going to be able to tell the difference between a magician and a saint. You're not going to know what's going on. How would you know? What the fuck do you know? Right? How are you going to know the difference? So their tools aren't working anymore. There's also nowhere left to hide. Just about any place Jews have lived, they've been chased out of. They acknowledge that, but they say it's all us. The problem is us. They hate us because they're vibrating so high with the presence of God that we dumb goy can't live with them. They have purer and greater souls than us, and us dumb goy just pollute them. It's all us. It's never them. It's never the black magic rituals. It's never the baby sacrifice. It's never the blood libel. It's never the excessive usury. It's never the unwillingness to actually work but to live off the labor of others. It's never them. There's nowhere left for them to run. And this destruction of the West is not going to happen. It's going to be stopped. And it's going to be stopped at the source. And the source is Israel. And Ukraine right now as well. But it's going to be stopped. It would be stopped right now already. It would all be over if it weren't for the compromise of Washington. If there weren't so many fucking Hasidic fingers up the ass of every congressman, every senator in Washington, it would all be over. Nobody supports Israel now. The UK doesn't even support them really anymore. Macron has made a few overtures towards them, but again, look at the source. He's a completely compromised, deviant sex freak and probably a pedophile. He's going to say whatever they tell him to say, and that's why there's so many compromised people in power right now. And that's our biggest problem. And that's why they're trying to make these people look normal with the push for transgenderism, minor attracted people as a sexual no, it's no longer pedophilia. Minor attracted. So when it becomes normalized, the leverage on these freaks in power like Trudeau and Macron and people like Obama, you can tell the sex freaks almost right away. It's not hard. All right. It's one of the principal characteristics of this group of people is their sex lives is, let's just say you would start with Caligula at his height and go. That's just the starting point. Just go from there. And that's what they're like. Now, I came across something today. I'm going to share it with you. It's a bit long. I think it's about 12 minutes. But if you remember the song "Rich Men North of Richmond," I think it was called "Rich Men North of Richmond" by Anthony Oliver. He came out of nowhere with this incredibly powerful song. He's been really quiet for quite a while, and then he posted a video on X, and I took it down and chopped it up a bit because it was a bit long. And here's the most salient part. Now, as you watch this, I want you to think about what I did 10 years ago in 2014 coming to Costa Rica. Going all over the country, finally settling on this province of Limon, buying 5 acres of land, building a homestead, setting up the water, the electricity, food supply. I do have food supply here if push came to shove. It would be a survival diet. It would be like boiled yucca with a little bit of salt. And go out in the mornings and do fruit pricking. the banana trees, the apple trees. You find wild pineapple up here as well. Can you imagine wild pineapple? Find all that stuff up here. And I could live. I'd lose weight. I'd get real skinny. But I'd live. You can go long periods of time without eating. Food isn't nearly as necessary as we think it is. That's another affectation of our bullshit society. To sell more food. Processed food. Everything about this Western... so I'm of mixed mind here. I'm going to be very honest with you. Okay? I'm going to be just as direct as I can possibly be with you now. There is a significant part of me that believes and thinks the West deserves to be destroyed. I don't think it's over 50%, but let me just say I completely understand. We have spiritually perverted and corrupted every culture we've come into contact with. Now, you can say it's affluence, you can say it's television, you can say it's music, but all of this culture of tradition and culture disruption has come out of the West. It's come out of London, it's come out of Los Angeles, it's come out of New York, come out of Chicago. I guess you could say it's come out of Detroit as well, and Eminem and stuff like that. But it's all egomania, sex addiction, drugs, partying, buying shit, being famous, for nothing really. And we've been worshiping these people since a long time. Sinatra and we used to respect artists. Like, I think that Charlie Chaplin was very respected in his day. Orson Welles was a very respected filmmaker. But we didn't have celebrity and celebrity worship and all this stuff until after World War II. And then it just started. I think the first program was the Elvis program. Let's teach this white guy to move his hips like a black man and sing like a black man. It's totally ripped off black music. Elvis Presley totally ripped it off. But he became Elvis, didn't he? You ever see any of those Elvis people? Like the fans? It's in many instances, the devotion to Elvis amongst people of that generation is as fanatical as third world Islam. And that's for a guy who wrote songs and moved his hips on stage. All right? And I believe in the fundamental principles of the Western democracies, which, number one, people are most productive when they're independent and ungoverned if their behavior is harmonious with their community. Leave them alone. Don't overregulate them. Let them figure it out. And it's for those very reasons we became so prosperous. But it is true we went too far. We sell everything now. Everything has a price tag on it now. It's against spiritual law to sell anything of to create a spiritual service and sell it. The Creator hates that shit. Hates it. One of the most vile things you can do in the eyes of the Creator and the agents of the Creator is franchise the knowledge of spirituality. And that's across the board, whether it's Joel Olson or some New Age cunt like Andrew Bartzis. And when you stop and you think about it, it makes so much sense. If our society becomes so debased that we sell consciousness information to each other, or we sequester consciousness information, as is the case of the gematria, the astrology, and all of the occult sciences inherent in the Talmudic variant of Judaism, Talmudic Zohar Kabbalistic variant of Judaism, the non-Torah Judaism. Refine and cultivate the information over generations, sequester it, never admit to its existence, and use it as the basis of control. That's what's going on now, but it's all being revealed by the constituent changes in our multidimensional reality. Constituent part is, you got oxygen, you got, all of these basic things that go into forming this reality, and it's all underwritten by a single energy, which is, I guess you could call the Holy Spirit, that maintains the core vibrations that allow sub-vibrations to go on. Those sub-vibrations fossilize into matter, thought, feeling, and matter in their final expression. Right? So the constituent element of spirit is changing. It's becoming more pronounced. And so all of this stuff is starting to be seen for what it is now. Anyways, let's watch Anthony Oliver here. See what he's got to say.
Anything to a bank or to another man. They just have my land and a house with a roof that doesn't leak. And a place that I can grow a garden and raise a few cows and sheep and be alive and try to live my life the way my grandparents lived their lives. I despise this world, and I despise the way this world's headed. And I want to be out here away from it. And so first and foremost, thank you. I thought about what I wanted to do now, because I don't really have to do anything at all. But the second that thought entered my mind, the one immediately after was that I am in debt. I'm in debt to you. You and I have built a relationship out of trust. You have counted on me to represent you, to try to be maybe one of the few normal voices that you have in this wicked world where everything is about control and power and manipulation. It's about keeping you distracted and angry and stupid. And I know that if you're watching this, you most likely despise this world just as much as I do. And I cannot just delete all my stuff and run away now. This is only the beginning. I have learned that there are a lot of regular people left in this not so regular world. There's a lot of good families. There's a lot of hardworking men and women in the United States, but also in Europe and Scotland and Ireland and Norway and Sweden, and I've talked to a lot of people. I've shaken a lot of people's hands. I've heard a lot of stories. I've realized that the shitstorm that we have just entered in, maybe in the last 2 decades, the unsustainable deficit and the groceries going through the roof and the fuel prices going through the roof and the dollar being devalued, the over-excessive printing of money, the constant psychological warfare that you, that your kids, that your neighbors are experiencing daily through social media, through YouTube and television. And we talk about how manipulative news networks are. We don't really talk about how manipulative social media is. How artificial intelligence is making it so captivating and so addicting. It's making your brain want more and more of it. That algorithm is, to me, it is a machine of true psychological warfare. It is, I believe that it could even be argued in of itself a form of hypnotism. And it's difficult for me to want to post on these platforms because although I know I need a way to get to you and I know there's a way that we need to communicate, I feel like I'm serving the machine that I despise.
Anyways, you get the point, right? And he just goes on. I was even cut down. It was 15 minutes, so I'm not going to play the whole thing. But basically, he's pulled a Bruce McDonald. The money he made writing that song and a few others gave him enough money to go buy land and build a house and be able to live a life. So, I mean, it's very interesting for me to see Anthony Oliver there, because he could go into the machine and become, worth whatever. You'd be amazed how much people in that market can make, like country western. So they're some of the richest musicians in the world, by the way. Okay? And he just turning his whole back on it, right? And going back to nature. And I guess this is, I don't like to say this a lot, because I think when I say it, after living in this earthbag house and getting part of my food growing up here and buying locally, including cheese made on the mountain, milk extracted from a cow or a goat on this mountain, all kinds of stuff is bought on this mountain, platano, bananas, sorry, I said it in Spanish. I can live very cheaply up here and very secure, because in a time of crisis, people don't have a lot of money. It's not like people are going to be driving around in pickup trucks raiding small villages in Costa Rica. To get to where I live, you'd have to walk 7 kilometers uphill. You'd be so exhausted by the time you got here, you wouldn't be able to fight. And I don't know why I was brought to this place, but I know it was to protect me. And that is what divine protection is. It isn't winning the lottery. It's just the ability to avoid some of the negative circumstance other people are going to be going through. And if you reach a state of individuality where you can separate yourself from the herd, where the karmic discharge is going to be, the karmic discharge is going to be indiscriminately put into the herd. And the karmic discharge could manifest in many, many ways. But it's like a black storm cloud above the Western world now, and it's going to start raining and hailing and thundering and flooding. And what effect that has, and I'm talking about the psychic atmosphere here, not the physical. I'm speaking metaphorically. And the way you escape it is you leave. But to leave, you have to know who you are as a spiritual being. Very few people can change their lives. We're creatures of habit. Right? I don't know how I broke this mold. Well, probably it was the result of my upbringing. So breaking the fear of going into strange and unknown circumstances happened to me when I was 16 and escorted out of my family home by the police and dropped off at a hotel to begin living my life as an independent man. No job, no work, $40 in my pocket. That's how my life started. Baptism by fire. And then moving around quite a bit, living in different places. I lived in Vancouver, I lived in Toronto, I lived in Ottawa, I lived in Waterloo in Canada, another city. I would go different places for work. Lived in Michigan, lived in New Jersey, lived in New York, all for work in the early 2000s. I stopped working in the U.S. when Bush and Cheney got too ridiculous. And then I lived in Taiwan from 92 to 94, so I had a full expat experience, and I loved that. And some people can't handle that. The ability to move around and survive and thrive in other environments is a spiritual attribute, by the way. Fixed people who can't change the way they think and perceive, that's a lower level of consciousness. Okay? And I will give this credit to our Jewish brothers and sisters, that they have grown in this intelligence and fearlessness through 2 decades of constantly moving around as a diaspora population. Our crisis is their normal. That's why they're so efficient in these circumstances. One of the reasons they're so efficient in them. But you have to have fairly good confidence in your health to move to a rural location in a foreign country. So you're not speaking your native tongue, and even though I speak Spanish quite fluently, it can become a little bit problematic when you're getting into technical language and explaining what's going on in your body to a doctor. How do I overcome that fear? I overcome that fear by knowing that my core health is good, by my diet, by my lifestyle, by my habit, by my exercises, and by the fact that I fast about 6 weeks a year. And cleaning out your intestines is about 90% of taking care of your health, if you don't know. If you're not fasting at this point in history, you're an idiot. But people are so stupid now. Fasting is what you get into when you're in a restorative consciousness, a reparative consciousness. After you've gone through all the bullshit and seen the lies, you start taking care of yourself. Most people now are still at the stage where they have to give up the bad shit. Smoking weed all day, drinking alcohol, eating shit food. You can't go someplace where you have to be fairly reliant on your health. If you live that way, you're going to get fucked up. You're not spiritually balanced. You're going to get fucked up. So you got to be able to take care of your health. You got to have a fairly good understanding of realities and understanding what chance, fate, and accident are and what the probabilities are that they're going to happen to you. It takes a lot of integrity, character, and self-awareness to reinvent yourself in a new life. But it's what you're going to have to do because the life you're living now is finished. It's never coming back. That was the title of the Michael Yon podcast with Doug Casey. The title of the podcast was The Life You Had Is Gone. It's over. The middle class Western life is over. It's never coming back. Gen Z will never live the same way as the millennials. The millennials will never live the same way as Gen X, and Gen X is 60% expression of the baby boomers in terms of ease of wealth accrual, abundance of good paying work, and low prices for basic commodities like homes and cars. Our heyday was the 70s and the 80s. A few fluctuations here and there, like the OPEC crisis under Carter. You know, stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, those were the days, man. I always use the example of my son's grandfather on his mother's side. His name was Francesco Castro. Frank Castro. He came over to Canada in like '73. Worked for a year alone with 2 kids and a wife back in the Azores in Portugal on the islands. Came to Canada. Found manual labor. Didn't speak English, only spoke Portuguese. Found a job, saved some money, brought his wife over. Left the 2 kids in Portugal, one of which was my ex-wife, my son's mother. Worked for another year. Saved enough money, brought the kids over, and bought a house. That house today is worth over $1 million. Well, I think it sold for 1.2 or 1.3 million. It was a split-level 4-bedroom house. Had 2 cars. He had a summer residence, not a cottage. It was just a trailer on a lake. But that was Frank's version of the Canadian middle-class life. Never learned English. Can you imagine? Had another child in Canada, so raised 3 kids. My son has 1 aunt and 1 uncle on that side of his family, and his mom. Took care of his family his whole life. Never learned English, and did that all as a manual laborer. I think his last job was a janitor at a high school in the West End of Toronto. No, he didn't have any bad habits. He didn't smoke. He didn't drink. He made his own wine. Grew grapes in the backyard and made his own Portuguese wine. And that was his one vice. You think Gen Z is going to have that? I don't think so. And one of the reasons they have to kill us now, or try to kill us, or frighten us into silence through a new reality, is because all of their contractual promises to us are going to go unfulfilled. They don't have the Social Security money. They don't have the money to take the baby boomers through through their most costly years of medicine. They don't have the money, man. I mean, the baby boomers do. Gen Z doesn't. Gen Z, my generation, was the first generation that realized you might have to leave. So there's a lot of Gen Z people in Costa Rica. There's some baby boomers, but there are a lot of, I'd say the majority of expats in Costa Rica now are Gen Z. And remember, Gen Z is born from, I think, 65 to 85. 20 years there, 65 to 85. So I'm early Gen Z, I'm 66. Had I been born 2 years earlier, I'd be a baby boomer. I like to get a little humor into every show, so I'll give you this.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe. And I don't understand the point that you're making. Talking about the significance of the passage of time, right? The significance of the passage of time. So when you think about it, there is great significance to the passage of time.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically that's wrong.
So you're now no longer are you necessarily keeping those private files in some file cabinet that's locked in the basement of the house. It's on your laptop, and it's then therefore up here in this cloud that exists above us, right?
The Caribbean nations, island nations, in the Western Hemisphere. That is where the Caribbean is. We are also in the Western Hemisphere. They are our neighbors. I am here, standing here on the northern flank, on the eastern flank, talking about what we have in terms of the eastern flank. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been, you know? Space is exciting.
It is time for us to do what we have been doing, and that time is every day. Every day it is time for us to agree that there are things and tools that are available to us to slow this thing down.
We will work together and continue to work together to address these issues, to tackle these challenges, and to work together as we continue to work.
Do you ban plastic straws?
I think we should. Yes. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. It's really difficult to drink out of a paper straw when if you don't gulp it down immediately, it starts to bend. Yes. And then, you know, the little thing catches it, and then, you know, so we got to kind of perfect that one a little bit more. Do you know, okay, a bit of a history lesson. Do you know that the women's teams were not allowed to have brackets until 2022? So the United States shares a very important relationship, which is an alliance with the Republic of North Korea. AI is kind of a fancy thing. First of all, it's 2 letters. It means artificial intelligence.
I honestly can't even make up my mind whether that is a satanic mockery ritual or whether they're so out of sync with reality that they think this is working. Yeah, I don't know who's buying this. You know, I haven't seen anybody say anything positive about... Oh, I saw, I think Ben Stiller, the Jewish-American actor, did some pro-Kamala Harris spot, and I saw it on X. You'll probably see idiots like CIA Sean Penn. That guy is a fucking CIA asset. That's why he was over there in the Ukraine. Practically crying when he's giving one of his Oscars to Vladimir Zelensky, who's an evil little Jewish fucking psychopath. He's got those psychopathic genes big time. Fuck a man's ass, kill a country's people if they're Christian. That's what I mean by psychotic. Okay? And again, I'm not trying to be disrespectful to Torah Jews or to gay men who love other men. And sometimes I go a bit too far. And I want to let you know that I do understand homosexuality as a natural occurrence. I've seen it in every culture I've lived in. I saw it in Asia. I see it here in Central America. I saw it in India, the hermaphrodites. Okay, it's a real thing, and I don't mean to be offensive, but they're not gay people. They are power fucking, show me a hole anywhere so I can destroy it and feel powerful. That's their sexuality. It's not gay. Just because a penis goes in a man's rectum, it's not gay. Sometimes I gotta give these little clarifying points. I don't want people to think I'm a redneck just because I do podcasts in a shirtless collared shirt. Sorry, a sleeveless collared shirt. like Cletus from The Simpsons. No, man, homosexuality is a real thing. It occurs in about 1% of the population. But when you start living in a generation that's up around 40-45% of homosexual experimentation, you can be pretty fucking sure there's a bunch of satanic mind control going on. And that they don't want that culture reproducing. That's the key thing. It's part of the depopulation. It's part of the destruction of the culture. So all of these dick in your hands, give me a joint, suck my dick people, you're part of the fucking problem. And that party is going to be over soon. And you're, by the way, let me tell you another little thing. If you've ever seen any of the Yuri Bezimov material, the KGB defector who came to the United States in the 80s, he tells you straight up, he says, as soon as they gain power, the communists, all those party people get killed. So all the people they use to destabilize the culture, the gays, the trannies, and all that, as soon as the commies have power, they kill those people. And the reason they do that is those are not productive people. And communists are not stupid. Everybody who's running a society wants that society to be productive. Smells so smoke. I think my wife's got burning some garbage. We burn garbage up here. There's no garbage where I live. You got to burn everything. Anything, and you got to be careful what you buy. You don't want to buy a lot of stuff that, canned food and stuff like that. Plastic's a petroleum product. It can be used to start fires quite easily. So it's okay to buy plastic. But again, if you can get into sync with this energy coming in, if you can get through enough of your familial and cultural karma to see beyond it, and see that life, you want to know who's going to survive what's coming? The people who go right back to life. Something approximating a near native life. Now, I'm here on a Apple Mac Mini with a M-class silicon chip and an $800 cell phone, and I have accoutrements of the modern world. Technology's never going to go away. But you can live a really nice peasant life. Find a little bit of work online in any country, remote or anywhere. Get your cash expenses down to like $1,000 a month if you can, and that's pretty easy. You got to grow some food. You got to keep a chicken coop. You got to keep egg chickens. You got to keep, if you eat meat, you got to keep meat chickens. You got to have some fruit trees. You got to have a well. But all of the stuff, like, we lived for millions of years on this planet without any of this government structure. And don't let them tell you it was a horror show. That's all propaganda. Oh, back 200 years ago, infant mortality. Bullshit. You got to realize the lie is complete. Okay? They're not just lying about a few things. They're lying about everything. Everything. And to get your life and to get your guarantee of life by your own hand back, you have to take your life back. You have to take your diet back. You have to take your water supply back. You have to take your health responsibility back. You there? Let me just see if I can get him back. You there? Somebody called me. Not sure if you can hear that ringing. You should. Hey, Simon, did you call? Yeah, I can hear you. Did you call? Yeah, I hear you, man. Can you hear me? Hi, how you doing? It's my friend Simon from you're in Alberta, right? Yeah. All right, go ahead, man. What's on your mind? You got an echo there. Yeah. How much? How much do you take home? Every $4,000. Is that before? Is that before or after taxes? Holy shit, man! That's shit money. I'm gonna do the math on that. I'm gonna put 66 into 1,000, and this will only give your post-tax income. But I want to get the hourly wage there. I'm curious. I own a home. Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. The I call it the neo peasant lifestyle. Okay? So I do live like a peasant. I live in a simple, but it's a beautiful house. Like everybody who comes here and lives with me, they all comment on like the feel of just sitting in this house, watching a movie, and just like it's just a beautiful, beautiful structure, energetically and vibrationally. A beautiful home is what I've created, and it's big. I have another big building in the back with 3 separate bedrooms, and it's all earth bags. So when you're in a bedroom, it's like your neighbor in the next room is a 22-inch thick wall. You don't hear anything. And this is the best life I've ever lived, and I don't have any of right now, anyways. I don't have any of the problems that North Americans and Western Europeans are having. And if you go around and you listen to all these experts, like even Michael Yon, who's a Green Beret, he's a fighting man. He's saying, "I don't think this can be won. Survival is about leaving and finding a new life now." But the thing is, Simon, most people can't do it. They think they can, but they can't. They don't have the courage. Courage. It's just the courage. They don't have the courage to go into the unknown and hope for the best. Why would I want to go and create a life for myself? I'm going to stay and trust what the government gives me. Well, the government's only serving death now, literally, with the medical assistance and dying in Canada now, but the government is only serving death now. So you either have to go out and make your own life. Now this could ostensibly be done in North America, but if you attempt to do it in North America, you will definitely run afoul of the building inspectors. They will not let you build unorthodox, comfortable, primitive architecture like a cob house or an earthbag house or any. I mean, even in rural parts, it won't happen. Even in rural parts, the building inspector will find you. Before I came to Costa Rica, I bought 20 acres in northern Ontario, 2.5 hours north of Toronto. Small town called Sundridge, but I was outside of Sundridge, and I had a bulldozer come out. I had my plot cleared, and I was getting ready to dig my trench for my gravel for my earthbag house. Building inspector came. That's how I ended up in Costa Rica. It was a blessing in disguise because I don't have to go through winter. Yeah. was a blessing. And yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Oh, they're saying that they hold on a sec. They're saying that they can't hear you. Hang on a sec. Mac OS audio capture. Why is that? I don't know why that would be. Why can't they hear you? I gotta let you go, buddy. Sorry, this whole conversation's just between. Well, I'll figure it out and get you on another time. Art, what do you mean down for the count? Okay, I'll answer that off air. Off the call with him. Sorry, folks, I don't know why you couldn't hear him there. He should have been coming in. There's something going on with my Mac OS audio capture. All right, let's try that one more time. I'll call him back. I think I got it right. Let me know if you can hear the call going through, or maybe I. No, it's not going to go through. Okay, sorry about that. He must have been wondering why I was calling him back. Well, I think that's a good enough show for today. They're getting longer now. I'm up to an hour and 21 minutes. But the calls add another 10 minutes or so. So I'm Bruce McDonald, and this has been the Talamanca Review, and let's try and spend time together every day now, folks, okay? And do me a favor and pick up a book. At this point, I would say Devil in Us, a memoir of you and me. If you want the quickest introduction to the overall big picture of what's going on this planet, and specifically in Western society. Anyways, I am Bruce McDonald. This has been the Talamanca Review. And have a great Friday night. I might be on Jimmy Jean tonight for the first hour anyways. So if you guys tune into that, I'll be on. But I find my worldview significantly different than those guys now, Epic, Rio, and Jimmy. You know those dudes don't believe in extraterrestrials? Like, they're all angel and demon guys. So you just imagine. Now, if we can all get along, why can't the world get along? But I'll probably be on the show tonight.